Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, your soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
Hi, I'm back. And I'm back to talk about an area that sometimes we don't quite know what to do. And that is when we have to deal with a situation in which we felt like we were doing the right thing and it ended up not being the right thing. And so it moves us into this next key about emotional confidence in ourselves. Because when we end up doing things that are not the right thing, even though we thought it was, it really creates this kind of reverberation within us, a sense of a sinking feeling. Oh my God, I didn't want to harm that person, or I didn't want to think that this person thought I was betraying them in some way because what you thought in the situation was going to be helpful to them or helpful to the situation or the event. And so it ends up not being, or it ends up going a little bit differently than you had imagined it to go. So if you thought about, well, if I tell this person about this issue that I have regarding my relationship or the health condition or related to academics, if you're involved in school of any kind, from a grade school to graduate school, whatever it may be, or when you're with a friend and you make a statement to them and it ends up later not being the right thing to say or do, then on a personal level is what I want to talk about. We get this sinking feeling, this sinking sense of, oh my God, it's called dread, about harming someone or making a situation more difficult. It ends up being you carry this energy with you. Sometimes those feelings, depending on the severity, can last for a couple of days, a couple of hours, or it can last for weeks or decades because we regret what has happened. I did one episode about Regretville. You don't want to live in Regretville. You want to move forward consciously and intentionally, not on a subconscious, automatic level. Well, it's a new day, so I'm moving forward. Or, it ends up being, something I have no control over. And so you find your solar plexus is still active, though. It's still turning. Or churning, it maybe be the better word. It's still churning around, and it's feeling like it's building up anxiety within you because you did something that was not helpful, that may have been blatantly wrong. And so you're now having to deal with this ongoing nagging, gnawing type of feeling that feels like it's sinking you in some way. So it's put a pin in your balloon and all the air goes out of it. You're feeling as if, I wish I could have done that differently, or I could have done that more now with the information I have. But the old saying is, hindsight's 20/20. We can always look back on a situation and feel as if, oh, now I know what I should have done. I should have done da. And then we berate ourselves because we didn't do that. But again, that's hindsight. When you were going through the situation, you were doing the best you could. You were trying to make sure you were being helpful with that particular situation you may be thinking about now, and it didn't turn out to be helpful at all. What do? How do you manage that? How do you kind of move past that? That's what I want to talk about. One of the things we have to realize is the soul, when we have that sinking feeling, it affects our connection to our soul. It creates this division between the feeling we're having, the sinkiness, and where our soul would want us to be, which is more connected, figuring it out and being more compassionate with oneself to navigate the situation. Now that you have more information, you can navigate it differently. Sometimes it does require for us to go and apologize for the situation based upon the information you had versus the information you now have. The other thing that we have to do is sometimes we will run because we're feeling bad about the situation. We'll run to talk to a friend, or talk to a family member, or talk to another individual to get it off our chest, so to speak, and get it out of our body, this nagging, sinking feeling. But what happens is sometimes they appease us and say, you did nothing wrong, you're okay. But what you're looking for in a Christic way is there could have been another way I could have done this. And you're looking in a discerning way. When you're walking a spiritual path, you're trying to say, could there have been something I could have done a little bit better here? What did I do that was right, that was helpful? And what was it that I did that I could have done a better job around? Because we're always evolving, we're always growing. So we want to have a degree of humility, but also we want to have a degree in which we are willing to make changes where we need to make changes. So you do those actions, you call that person, or you send that text, or you find a way in which you can meet over lunch or coffee or tea, dinner, or whatever it may be, to have the conversation with the person. And that does require sometimes courage to do those things. Because you're saying, well, I don't want to appear like I'm stupid or I'm dumb or I'm incompetent. And no, that's not it. You're doing it with the strength of mind and with the internal realization that I need to correct this situation and I want to do it in the best way. Sometimes it's through prayer. We can pray and ask God to take this energy off of you and off of them and transmute it. Let it be a point of learning for you and teach you what you need to learn and how you need to move forward, based upon the situation that you went through. Sometimes we actually need to also retool ourselves. Maybe the way we said something or we did something was abrasive, was offensive, and you're coming to see a pattern that happens with you with certain types of people or situations, that those qualities may end up coming out. We may be more belligerent and we're not realizing it until this last incident that happened. You thought you were doing the right thing and it ended up not being that at all. So we have to sometimes do a conscious check-in with ourselves. Check in and say, okay, mentally, emotionally, physically, what did I notice? What was it going on? Not to the point that you're navel gazing at yourself at every minutia of a part of what happened. No, it's more kind of a realistic check-in with yourself and being attuned to the fact that there may have been some things I could have done differently that would help me. That's moving us to emotional maturity. We're willing to look at our emotions, our reactions. We're willing to look at those feelings that are nagging us as opposed to suppressing them or trying to avoid them and not look because it doesn't feel good. Emotional maturity with your soul and mind is being able to say, I'm looking at this through the Christic lens of my soul and of my Christ self and the I am presence, the Atman, the Creator. You're looking at it from that lens to be able to say, and you may have to say to yourself, God, help me to see this through your eyes. What is the best thing for me to do here? Help me to see this through my soul's evolution and how I may grow from this situation that has occurred to me. Those are all the appropriate ways in which you are now integrating more and more of living life and dealing with your life's adventures with your soul and mind. Your soul is being able to help you to see the higher direction. The soul, which is uniting with the Christic energy that Jesus came to teach us about. How do we move ourselves to a higher level, a higher awareness, a higher vibration of awareness that now we can see things from the mountaintop that we couldn't see things when we were in the valley? That now that we can be able to walk and realize this is challenging here. And instead of just stopping and saying, this is too hard, ask God to help you. Ask God to guide you. The call compels the answer. If we don't ask, the angels can't step in to try to help us. And we want to be able to understand that there's many dimensions in which we live life and we have our life experiences by. Sometimes we only look at it from one dimension, and that is the physical dimension. But there is the emotional, the mental, the spiritual dimensions to who we are. And we don't necessarily tap into the spiritual dimension of who we are to help guide us in the situations we find ourselves in. We want to do more of that, to be integrated, to have a greater sense of wholeness and completeness. But if we don't move forward with emotional mastery, we're always blocking ourselves. We're always avoiding the situation, or we're suppressing the situation, or repressing the situation down into the subconscious, unconscious levels of our being. They just hover down there. Or up in our attic, of a house, we put the junk up there, in the attic and in the basement. We want to clear those places out. We want to have emotional mastery. We have to learn how to deal with our feelings and our emotions as they arise. The good, the bad, and the ugly emotions that rise up in us. They're emotions, and therefore we can gain a greater perspective and do things in a different way. It's just like every day is a new day to be your best self. Every day is a learning opportunity to see things in a different light, to ask more questions of yourself and others. That thing that was painful or hurtful that you realized wasn't the right thing to do, moving towards transcending those situations because you're prayerful. You use scripture, or you use inspirational readings to help you to move in a different level of awareness and consciousness. You use inspirational music. You use whatever will help you see things in a different way to guide you. So when that situation may come up again in the future, you have a different vantage point to look at it. You have a different way of maneuvering, of operating to move through it. That is the power of being your best self. That is the way in which Jesus came to teach us how to be able to do that. He was very thoughtful. He looked at things in parables. He was a great scholar. He read the spiritual teachings. He learned it. He integrated it. How much do we do that? Especially when it comes to emotional issues. How much do we go and find out, what do I need to learn? And through the readings, through YouTube, social media platforms, Rumble, whatever it may be, how can I learn from the experience? And when we're doing those types of things and learning from it, then you are now become more intentional, more conscious. In the morning times, as you gain your emotional mastery to feel more confident, you're able to say, how do I want to live my day? What do I want to focus on that will guide me to be my best self in this meeting, or at work when I have a colleague that wants to pick a fight with me, or in a relationship when you're finding that things are not going very well. Now, how do we consciously say, I want to do things differently. I'm not going to be triggered by these events. I want to have mastery over them, not them have mastery over me. So even in our thoughts, or even in our feelings or our expressions, how do we continue to fine-tune ourselves? Be fine-tuning the situation. Think about it. For example, you may be involved at work and you find that a colleague is always kind of being sarcastic or mean towards you. And you tend to be a little bit quieter, and you tend to not like a lot of conflict around you, so you're just quiet about it. And then one time the person says to me, and then you blow up. And in that blowing up, you say some things that probably you didn't need to say, but it just built up over time. And then you think to yourself, no way am I going to go apologize to that person who just was, been mean-spirited for me for the past 6 months. Why do I need to apologize? But you still have this sinking feeling inside yourself, because you know that your behavior wasn't the best, regardless of what this other person has done. It still wasn't something you feel proud about. So what do? Do you toss and turn? Not getting enough sleep because you're now embarrassed by what you said, and now other people are hearing what you said to the person? Do you talk to friends about it and justify and why you were right to do it because this was a person who was needling you for the past 6 months? Do you talk to your significant other or spouse and share a little bit more about this sinking feeling and gnawing feeling that is still with you after a couple of weeks or even after a day? Do you share that and try to get it out that way? Those are maybe avenues that you can really go down. But the avenue that you haven't talked about, if you're walking a spiritual path, have you asked God? Have you invited God into your conversation about, you know what, I was really angry and frustrated and I blew up and I said some things that I didn't need to say. What should I do here, Lord? I don't want to perpetuate being critical or condemning of this person. That's not who I want to be. I consider myself to be a kind and considerate type of person and a conscientious person. What can I do here? And you pray and you wait and we continue to pray. Just because we don't immediately have an answer or hear an answer, you should not be saying, well, God's not there then. God is asking you to settle into the prayer, settle into the heart, settle into love, and trying to be more loving and kind towards yourself, regardless of the situation that has occurred. When we actually expand our heart in love and in gratitude, knowing that God is always with us and will always try to guide us, but it's God's time, not our time. When we just try to get centered in that love vibration, it connects us in an accelerated way to God, because God is love. God is harmony. God is peace. So when we're able to do that, something starts to fly in or float down to us. That's what we need to do. And it's going to be unique for you in the situation that you find yourself in. Or you may find that you run into a person that makes a statement about something. You realize, oh, that does tie into what happened to me. And you hear what they did, and you're just like, wow, that was really great. Again, what we're working on is emotional maturity that moves us to greater confidence. And when we're able to do that, we hear from a person, or we read something, or we become inspired, then the next thing we have to do is be obedient and just say, okay, let me either write it down in my journal or write it out so I can see it and what pieces I'm able to do, and then be obedient enough to say, let me reach out. Let me talk to this person, or let me send them an email to let them know, can we find a time to talk? Or within that email, just apologize. My concern here, if you send an email, is that I want to apologize for my behavior. That was inappropriate. It wasn't right. But I need to say to you, too, that the behavior that has gone on for the past 6 months is not right either. So I'm not taking away from my behavior, but what moved me to that, even though we have to realize people in our lives are there to test us. We don't realize that. They're there to test us and help us to realize the fact that I'm in control of my emotions. I am in control of myself. And when I'm not, oh, that's a test. Let me see what I can do to correct it and get back in alignment with my soul, with my Christ self, with God, the Creator. Let me get back in alignment with that, and then be in listening grace of what I need to do. So if you're sending that email to the person to apologize, you may have one email that is for the apology and a second email to say, I want to follow up. And just say, this is some of the things that I've noticed have gone on, which I would like to talk with you about. And see if we can find a mutual way of interacting moving forward. It is up to them whether they want to take you up on that offer. What you're trying to do is work from the standpoint of what God would do. What would Jesus do in this situation? What would your higher self want you to do in this situation? And when you look at things from that lens, then you're realizing it is not about the ego. It is not about wanting to look your great self, but instead you want to be obedient to what your inner self is telling you need to do, and you're willing to be able to try it out and see. But it has to be with not expecting that this person is going to be different or okay with the email you sent to them. They may not be. All you're trying to do is to be able to extend an offer. Say, can we work on this? I'm willing to work on this. And if they say no, okay, you did your part. You let go of the rest. And that's the other piece you learn to do, is let it go. You ask God to guide you in how to let it go, which may be different for each person. But one way that we can be able to do is every time that thought or that situation comes up in your mind, saying, I'm letting it go. I've done what I needed to do. I do not need to continue to think about this. You breathe in, you breathe out, you move forward and do something that you need to get done that day, and not have your mind occupied by the situation and ruminating about the situation. It's like, no, I want to spend my energy in a better way. Because when we talk about emotional mastery, that's the mastery part. That we're no longer going to allow our emotions to rule us. When God is within you, through your soul, through the Christ, you realize I can gain mastery over me, how I'm feeling, and what I need to do in the situation. I'm not going to be so worried about this other person. Now that I kind of extended the olive leaf, or olive branch is it called, now that I extended that, then I'm going to have to surrender it to the higher power, my higher source. Surrender it and let it go. Surrender it and let it go. And then as you move into your day, the ways in which we help to master that mind, what do you want to call it? Rumination. The mind can ruminate on and on. You should hum something that's inspirational. You hum, literally, because the humming helps to soothe the body and soothe the mind. So you do little things that you know are going to help you to move forward because you're walking a spiritual path. You have a destination with God and God's fullness within you. I think God is always trying to be more and more fully present within us. And there's different degrees in which God exists within us and degrees in which we pull or push God away from us. Doesn't mean that God is not going to try to continue to be present. But if you are a co-creator with God, my Father worketh hitherto, and I work, then we have to be willing to say, okay, that wasn't a great behavior, or a great thought, or a great feeling that I had there. Let me change that to be more God-like. That pulls God towards us. And that's what we're looking for. To have more and more of the presence of God and His ways within us. To be aware of the laws, which I've talked about in the past, of the universe that allows us to be in alignment with God. Be aware that there are a high path and a lower path. And we're always walking up the mountain to the higher awareness and heights of awareness about who we really are. Something to think about. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.